The Day the Sky Burned, Pearl Harbor. A true historical story inspired by the events of December 7, 1941. Part 1. The Morning That Changed America Forever. At 7:55 a.m., the peaceful Sunday morning was shattered by a sound that no American in Hawaii would ever forget. Within minutes, an entire nation would be dragged into the deadliest war in human history. For generations, the sailors stationed at Pearl Harbor believed that the vast Pacific Ocean was their greatest shield. The sparkling blue waters surrounding Hawaii looked peaceful, almost too beautiful to imagine as a battlefield. Families attended church. Children played outside. Soldiers wrote letters home. Battleships rested quietly in the harbor under the warm Hawaiian sun. No one imagined that, just beyond the horizon, history was flying toward them. Among those stationed aboard the USS Arizona was 21-year-old Seaman Daniel Carter, a farm boy from Kansas. He had enlisted in the United States Navy only a year earlier, dreaming of adventure and a steady paycheck during uncertain economic times. His mother had cried when he boarded the train for California, but Daniel promised he would return home wearing medals and stories of distant oceans. That Sunday morning began like any other. At 6:30 a.m., Daniel climbed from his bunk, stretching as sunlight filtered through the ship's narrow windows. The smell of fresh coffee drifted through the mess hall while cooks prepared breakfast. Sailors joked with one another about baseball, girls back home, and the possibility of getting shore leave later that afternoon. Outside, the harbor was calm. 8 massive battleships rested side by side along Battleship Row. Their steel hulls reflected the golden sunrise. Nearby, destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels floated peacefully at anchor. Thousands of sailors had no reason to suspect danger. Far above the Pacific Ocean, however, a very different morning was unfolding. More than 180 Japanese aircraft were approaching Hawaii in complete radio silence. Their engines roared against the wind as experienced pilots checked their watches and tightened their grips on the controls. The attack force had sailed across thousands of miles of open ocean in one of the most daring military operations ever attempted. Their mission was simple: destroy the American Pacific Fleet before it could interfere with Japan's plans in Asia. At 7:40 a.m., several radar operators on the northern shore of Oahu noticed an unusually large group of aircraft approaching the island. One young private stared at the radar screen. "That's a lot of planes." His supervisor glanced briefly before dismissing the report. "They're probably American B-17 bombers arriving from California." The warning ended there. 10 minutes later, the first Japanese aircraft crossed the coastline. Commander Mitsuo Fuchida looked down through his cockpit. Below him lay Pearl Harbor. The entire American fleet appeared exactly where Japanese intelligence had predicted. He smiled. Then he transmitted the code words that would echo through history. Tora, Tora, Tora. The surprise was complete. Seconds later, the first bombs began falling. Daniel was halfway through breakfast when the entire ship violently shook. The coffee cup exploded from his hands. What was that? Another explosion followed. Then another. The loudspeaker crackled. Air raid Pearl Harbor. This is not a drill. For a brief second, nobody moved. Not because they were afraid. Because they couldn't believe it. Enemy aircraft. Here. In Hawaii. Impossible. Then the machine guns began firing. Japanese Zero fighters swept low across the harbor, spraying bullets into ships, buildings, and airfields. Explosions erupted everywhere. Smoke climbed.